If you look at what happened that morning, if you would have said at the end of this, the only person that would be dead would be the shooter, nobody would believe it.
The guy been shot. Is he okay?
We do have some breaking news for you right now. It appears that something has happened at a congressional ball game.
Steve Scalise has been shot.
Police are on the scene right now.
Scalise dragged himself across the field, leaving a trail of blood.
You could hear paramedics coming and, figured help is on the way and hopefully I'm going to get to a hospital quick.
Congressman Scalise is a friend. He's a patriot, and he's a fighter.
Hello and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tim Schmidt. I'm the president and founder of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. My guest today is Congressman Steve Scalise. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana. He also serves as a minority whip in the U.S. House of Representatives. Congressman Scalise is here with me today to talk about a few things. Obviously, the important election that is quickly approaching us, but we're also here to talk about the importance of the natural-born right to self-defense and ultimately the Second Amendment. Congressman Scalise, on behalf of the over 500,000 U.S. Concealed Carry Association members, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to our country as a congressman, and most importantly, thank you for your strong support of the Second Amendment.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's great to be with you and with all of the people that are online here on this interview. People who understand the importance of the Second Amendment and the ability to have concealed carry permits, and it's a right that we all have to fight for. As you know, our freedom is literally only one generation away from extinction if we don't fight to preserve it. Ronald Reagan talked about that. We all know what's at stake when we see what's going on around our country, as well as the threats to our Second Amendment rights. Yes, sir. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, now more than ever, that statement from Ronald Reagan just really rings true. So my first question, sir, is you recently spoke at the Republican National Convention, and you talked about the compassion that President Trump showed you when you were in the hospital after that horrible tragedy that, thank goodness you survived. Now, of course, we never hear about this compassion from President Trump in the mainstream media because, seems to me like a general rule, they don't like to talk about that. But I would love it if you could kind of share that story, share that conversation that he had with you. Yeah, sure. And, before the shooting in June of 2017, I had gotten an opportunity to work with the president on a number of things. President Trump and I worked together on healthcare legislation, on putting coalitions together. We were getting ready to do the tax cut bill. The tax would ultimately became the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And so I had built a relationship up with him during the campaign, supported him then, and then ultimately worked with him as the majority whip. But the day of the shooting, it actually happened to be President Trump's birthday. But that evening, when I'm in the hospital, I'm fighting for my life. My wife had just flown in from New Orleans with our kids. She doesn't know if I'm going to make it through. And so it was a very, very difficult time for my family. And President Trump and Melania came to the hospital that night and just spent important time with my wife, consoling her, helping out all the people that had come up at the hospital that day, and just spent a lot of time there praying for me and showing that he cared. And then throughout the weeks that I was recovering in the hospital, I would just get these random phone calls from President Trump, and he'd just check in on me, see how I was doing. And I get to work with him still on a regular basis, and you see the side of this guy who cares about people. When we're working on the tax cuts, he's trying to figure out how we can help the lowest income people become part of the middle class and have a chance at the American dream. That's what he's about, but you never see that side of him. So I wanted to share that side of him with people to say, this is the guy who I know. He cares deeply about people, and people ought to know that and see it in a way where they normally don't, see that presentation in the mainstream media. Yeah, well, that's for sure. Boy, that's great to hear. I appreciate you sharing that. So, another thing that really came out of the tragedy that you went through back in 2017 was kind of a renewed discussion about concealed carry and concealed carry reciprocity. And as I was prepping for this interview with you, I thought to myself, man, when I'm in a situation where I have to travel, or I'm going to go to even a different, maybe a government building, and I can't carry a gun, I literally feel like I'm naked.
And so in that context, because I know there's hundreds of thousands of people across the country that are responsibly armed, and they're in the same situation, whether they're going from state to state or they're just in buildings where they they can't carry. What's your perspective on how the Byzantine laws of concealed carry all across the country really hamstring good responsibly armed Americans?
When you look at the Second Amendment in general, there are people that are always trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. But there's a bill by Richard Hudson that I'm a co-sponsor of that would allow concealed carry reciprocity. Each state has their own laws that have concealed carry laws. I was proud to be the co-sponsor of Louisiana's law to create concealed carry permits. It was one of the very first bills that I passed when I was a state representative. And we have unique laws. Every state has their own, but most of them are very similar. And so if you're in one state and you have a concealed carry permit from another state, you ought to be able to have reciprocity. And that's what Richard Hudson's bill does that I'm a co-sponsor of. I'd like to see it pass. And look, President Trump would like to sign that bill. The problem is when you get to the Senate, they had a 60 vote rule. And so there are people obviously who don't support our Second Amendment rights who were able to block it. And that's really unfortunate because, look, you've heard the Democrats talk about changing the 60 vote rule if they get the Senate to go to 51. I hope our Republican senators are paying attention to that. I'd like to see them change that rule too so we can get good legislation like concealed carry reciprocity passed through Congress to President Trump where he would sign that bill today. You can see the people who have concealed carry permits, by and large, are much more law-abiding, much more safe, understand how to handle guns, and can keep themselves and others around them safer by having a concealed carry weapon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. What do you think? Why don't you think that the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act gained more traction when it was, when it was a thing a few years ago? To me, that's very frustrating. And before you answer that, I want to share a quick story with you. I was doing a TV interview with a TV station in Oregon. This is probably a year and a half ago. And one of the callers called in, and they were just distraught over the fact that someone from a different state would be able to carry a gun in Oregon and not pass the Oregon concealed carry laws. Well, ironically, I'd done a little research, and Oregon actually has some of the least stringent concealed carry, class and requirements to pass. And when I brought that up to the guy, he didn't really know what to say. It was quite funny. But back to my question, why didn't this get more traction? What happened?
Well, you've got people who are against our rights to exercise the Second Amendment. I mean, you've got a number, it's a lot of Democrats up here that say they're pro-gun, and yet they vote against gun rights in the House and Senate. And so even when we had the House, we were able to move some of those bills through the House, and then they would get stuck in the Senate because they have the 60 vote rule, where even if every Republican's for it, a few Democrats can band together and block the ability to bring that bill to the floor. We see it every day. They're trying to push for more gun control. Luckily, we've been able to hold back additional gun control, but we see it every day. You saw after the shootings in LA, those two cops that were just viciously shot luckily they finally caught the guy. But the next day you had Joe Biden tweeting out gun control message, saying we need to ban weapons of war. The guy had a handgun, and he's talking about banning assault weapons. Like, what are you even talking about? And he says, I'm to take on the gun control. Well, my God, I'm glad he's at least saying it so you know what's at stake. I mean, if you support your Second Amendment rights, they're on the ballot this election. November 3rd, everybody has to vote because there are people who want to take away your gun rights. You saw that guy in St. Louis. I mean, my gosh, he's holding the AR-15 when there are people coming, and some of them wanted to burn his house down. Yeah. It's a peaceful protest, mostly peaceful protest. Mostly peaceful protest means some of them want to burn your house down, and you in your home with your gun is your only line of defense, and they took away his gun. They arrested him. I mean, that tells people what's going on out there, and luckily there are people fighting for him. The Missouri Attorney General finally stepped in, but it shouldn't have taken that. And so even today in 2020, there are people in government levels from the, people that want to be the president all the way down to somebody who wants to be your mayor or your governor that want to take away your gun rights. And we ought to know who they are and vote accordingly. That's why it's so important that people vote.
Yeah. Yeah, freedom, especially the freedom to protect yourself, is literally, it's a battle that will never end. So here's something I want to throw at you. So something that is just amazing to me, exciting, but also a little scary, is that over the last 6 months, over 5 million Americans, brand new gun owners. These are people that have never owned a gun in their life before, and they've, they decided to buy a gun. I mean, what do you think is in their hearts and minds, and what are some other thoughts about this pretty interesting phenomenon?
It's a very real thing, and I've seen it too. New gun owners, first-time gun owners. It's, I think, directly related to this mob violence where you see people going and not just protesting. It's one thing to say, I'm for this issue or I'm advocating for a cause. We all have that right. When you start destroying other people's property, when you start burning down buildings and taking over parts of cities, for God's sake, people are looking at that going, okay, I better go get a gun to protect myself. They are literally defunding police in some of these cities. You see it. I mean, New York's doing it, Seattle. People are going, okay, if there aren't cops to answer if I call 911 and a social worker says, hey, I'll be over on Monday to try to talk the guy off the ledge, good luck. I mean, it's just you protecting your home. And that's why you're seeing a dramatic increase in gun sales. People recognize that there are people out there trying to take away your rights and take away your private property, burn down and destroy your private property. So you've got to be able to protect yourself. That's why the Second Amendment is so important. And as you know, concealed carry rights in states where they have it, you ought to have that right to protect yourself. And there are people trying to take that right away. That's what's important. And I think people see that now. They see that not all of us agree on this issue. There are people who disagree with us and, in fact, want to take away our gun rights. They've challenged the Second Amendment. It was a 5-4 decision just a few years ago by the Supreme Court in D.C. to allow you to even have a gun, to say whether or not a militia, you have to be part of a formal army to have a gun, or can you have a gun in your own home by yourself? That was a 5-4 decision. Luckily, the court, I think, has gotten better now. But still, to think that there are still people on the Supreme Court today who don't think the Second Amendment means you can have your own gun in your house. And they're sitting on the Supreme Court right now. That's why this Amy Barrett pick is so important. She's such a great person, but she understands the Constitution the way that Scalia did. It's the law as it's written. You don't get on the court to make up your own laws or to carry out your personal agenda. You're supposed to follow the Constitution. I want more people on the court like that. Amy Barrett, fortunately, is one of them.
It'll be great for our country, and Amy Barrett is confirmed. I'm really excited about that. Back to the 5 million new gun owners, Congressman Scalise, I think this is such an amazing opportunity for freedom, for Second Amendment rights, because now we have all these brand new people that, just months before, this was not a voting item for them. They didn't even think about owning a gun. And so what a great opportunity to help these people understand, first of all, how to be responsibly armed, learn how to use that gun, what to do, what not to do, but ultimately help them realize that, guess what, there are lots of people in this country that want to take your right away that you never thought about before, but now you're thinking about it. So personally, I'm excited about this opportunity. All right, so Congressman.
One more point I want to make, because, again, what's at stake in November? Not only are gun sales through the roof, ammo sales are through the roof. Ammunition is actually hard to get right now. Because there are so many people buying guns. But one of the things they've tried to do in previous administrations is regulate away the ability for people to make ammunition, through the EPA and other agencies. So they've gone after our rights in many ways, not just banning the sale of guns, trying to shut that down, but trying to make it harder for people to manufacture ammunition. And we're seeing today it's hard to get ammunition right now because so many people are understanding what's at stake.
Yeah, so true. So, Congressman Scalise, there's probably over 500,000 U.S. Concealed Carry Association members watching this right now. Any parting comments that you'd like to share with them before we wrap things up?
Well, again, thank you for caring about the Second Amendment and your rights to have concealed carry permits. Concealed carry permit owners are very responsible, are people who understand safety, but they also understand that your ability to have a firearm is your protection. It's your first line of defense. If something goes wrong, you want to be able to call 911, but sometimes you might not even have the luxury of waiting or going to call 911 if something happens. If you've got a gun, you can protect yourself, and you know how. If you're a concealed carry permit holder, you've actually gone extra steps to know how to defend yourself and to use that weapon. Hopefully you never have to, but as I saw myself, I wouldn't be alive today if there weren't people with guns ready to confront the shooter who was trying to kill me. And they were police officers. They were heroes. They did everything you would want somebody to do. Thank God they were there with those guns to counter the shooter. That's what people do every day to defend themselves. It happens all the time in America. You only see bad stories if somebody goes out and does something bad, but so often people use guns to defend themselves and their family. That's what keeps communities safe.
Yeah, well said, my friend. Sir, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to our country. I really appreciate that. To all you viewers, USCCA members, if you're watching this, hey, thanks for being a part of the family. Thanks for being your family's first line of defense. And for those of you who have stumbled across this video and maybe you've just started going down your own personal self-defense awakening like I did 20 years ago, I encourage you to continue. Continue down that path so you can be your family's protector, be your family's first line of defense. All right, folks, that's it for now. Thank you very much. Take care and stay safe.